Evan stepped down from the small shuttle, his boots crunching against the pale, smooth ground of Zyphora. The sky stretched above him in strange shades of lavender and green, streaked with thin, floating clouds that seemed almost alive. The air smelled faintly metallic, yet sweet, and it carried a hum that made the hairs on his arms stand on end. Everything about this place felt both beautiful and unsettling. He adjusted the strap of his pack and took a slow, careful breath. The humans who had come before him had spoken of alien worlds, of their wonders, but nothing in the reports had prepared him for this. The village ahead was small, almost picturesque. Buildings were low and rounded, made of a translucent material that shimmered in the fading light. There were no sharp edges, no harsh angles. Even from a distance, Evan could see the soft pulsing glow emanating from clusters of stone scattered throughout the village. It was faint at first, almost like embers buried under ash, but as he watched, the stones shifted in brightness and color, responding to movements and sounds around them. A figure approached, short and luminous, its skin shifting in faint patterns of color. The alien had no visible mouth, yet Evan understood immediately that it was communicating. The changing hues were a form of speech, he had been told, and his translator implanted in his ear would convert it into words. "Welcome, human," the voice came, smooth and musical. "You are Evan. You are here to serve the village." Evan nodded, though his stomach twisted in anticipation. "Yes, I'm ready to help." The alien, who introduced itself as Miri, gestured with its delicate hands, and Evan followed through the softly glowing streets. Villagers passed by, moving in quiet, deliberate patterns. They acknowledged him with bursts of color, brief flashes of violet or green that he instinctively felt as greetings, but there was something eerie in the precision of their movements. They were alive, yet their motions felt rehearsed, almost ritualistic. "You will care for the glowstones," Miri said. "They are vital. They keep the village safe. Your task is simple. Do not disturb their rhythm. Do not let them fade." Evan had been prepared for difficult tasks in his career. He had worked in dangerous labs, explored harsh terrain, and faced situations that required quick thinking. Yet he felt a shiver run down his spine. There was something strange about these stones, something more than just light. He followed Miri to a small clearing where dozens of glowstones were arranged in irregular clusters. Each stone glowed softly, some blue, some green, others golden. Evan reached out hesitantly, and the nearest stone pulsed in response, brighter and warmer than before. He stepped back, quickly, startled. "They respond to life," Miri explained, her colors shifting to a calming blue, to emotion, to presence. "You must learn their language." Evan stared at the stones, his mind racing. How could a rock respond to feelings? How could something so simple carry such power? He crouched down and tried to focus, sending calm thoughts into the nearest stone. Slowly the glow steadied, a gentle wave moving across its surface. He felt a thrill, a small spark of connection, and then a ripple of unease. He sensed that these stones were not passive objects. They were aware, sensitive, and perhaps judging. Over the next few hours, Evan moved carefully among the clusters, observing and tending as Miri had instructed. He watered the stones, though the liquid used was faintly luminescent and smelled sweet rather than earthy, and adjusted their orientation. Each time he touched them, they pulsed and vibrated, sometimes reacting instantly to his mood. When he felt nervous, the stones dimmed. When he tried to remain calm, they shimmered gently. It was exhausting. By mid-afternoon, Evan's arms ached. His mind swirled with the constant feedback from the stones, and he began to notice the villagers' odd behavior. Some avoided him, keeping wide arcs around his movements, while others lingered near clusters, watching silently. Their colors shifted rapidly when he approached, sometimes brightening and warning, sometimes dimming in fear. He had no idea what the signals meant, but the effect was unmistakable. They were observing, judging, waiting. That night, Evan sat outside a small dwelling provided for him, the soft light from the stones casting a surreal glow across the ground. The village was quiet, almost painfully so. No chatter, no mechanical noises, no fire or cooking smells. Just the stones and their steady hum. As he looked around, he noticed a villager standing apart from the others, its glow dim, almost flickering. The figure watched him intently, and then, in a sudden motion, touched a nearby stone. The glow flared violently, a wave of heat and light that made Evan stumble back. The villager collapsed to the ground, and Evan froze, unsure whether to move. The stone pulsed, drawing in the villager's energy, or something like energy, until the alien slowly righted itself. Weak but unharmed, it rose and moved away without a word, colors dull and muted. Evan stared, horrified and fascinated. Whatever the stones were doing, it was not ordinary. He felt a mix of awe and fear. Over the next days, Evan learned more of the village's strange ways. Every action of a Trelkin was tied to the stones in some way. Movement, speech, even rest was synchronized with the stones' rhythms. A villager singing in the square could make clusters of stones shimmer in time. A villager frightened or upset could cause a nearby stone to flicker violently, sending ripples across the entire village. It was mesmerizing and frightening at once. Evan tried to speak to Miri about what he observed. They seemed to be connected. More than just ritual, he said. Do the stones, do they control them? Miri's glow shifted, a flash of indigo and gold that Evan interpreted as amusement or maybe pride. The stones are the village. We care for them and they care for us. The bond is necessary. Without the stones, the village could not survive. You will learn. Evan realized that he was not merely tending stones. He was entering a living network, a system older than he could imagine. One that the villagers themselves might not fully understand. Each stone was alive, each glow a reflection of something vital and mysterious. And he was the first human to touch this network. The more time he spent among the stones, the more he noticed subtle patterns. Certain clusters pulsed faster at specific times of day. Others seemed to anticipate movements or sounds before they occurred. When Evan placed his hand on a stone and thought of joy, it brightened immediately, sending tiny pulses through neighboring stones. When he felt fear, they dimmed and quivered. It became clear to him that the stones were not just reactive, they were adaptive, almost intelligent. Curiosity gnawed at him. What if the stones could be influenced deliberately? What if the humans who came to this village could not only care for them, but learn to guide their energy? The thought was thrilling and terrifying. He dared not experiment too much. One misstep could destabilize the entire village. By the 5th day, Evan felt a tentative rhythm form between him and the stones. He could sense their pulses before they occurred, a faint echo in his mind, and they seemed to recognize him as part of their network. At night, he would lie awake, listening to the soft hum of the stones outside his dwelling, feeling their warmth against the floorboards. They were alive, and they were watching him in return. One evening, as a violet dusk descended, Evan noticed a villager staggering near the edge of the clearing. Its glow was uneven, flickering in dangerous pulses. The alien muttered, or thought, something unintelligible, and touched a stone. The glow erupted in a wave that swept through the clearing, sending a shiver down Evan's spine. The villager collapsed again, weak and trembling, but unharmed. Evan understood, in a way he could not yet explain, that the stones were not just caretakers, they were guardians, and judges, and perhaps even teachers. Evan felt a strange sense of responsibility. His role was simple on paper, yet the reality was much more profound. He was no longer just a visitor. He was a participant in something ancient, something that had kept the village alive for countless generations. Each touch of a stone was a conversation, each pulse a message he barely understood. As he lay down that night, Evan's thoughts raced. The task seemed simple at first, care for the glowstones, but it was far stranger than he had imagined. It was a test, a lesson, and a connection to something greater than himself. The hum of the stones lulled him into a restless sleep, and in his dreams he saw flashes of light and color, patterns he had never seen before, and a promise that his journey had only just begun. Days passed, and Evan settled into the rhythm of the village, though he never truly felt comfortable. Each morning, he woke to the soft glow of the stones, their pulses like a heartbeat he could not ignore. The villagers moved around him in their practiced ways, their colors shifting with every thought and feeling, a language he was only beginning to understand. Evan realized that every action in this village, every step, every touch, every glance, was tied to the glowstones. He spent long hours observing the stones, learning how they reacted to the villagers, and cautiously testing his own influence. When he focused on calm thoughts, the stones shimmered gently. When he allowed frustration or fear to creep in, they wavered, dimmed, and flickered like candlelight in a breeze. He realized quickly that these were not simple tools. They were living, thinking, responsive entities. Evan wanted to understand their limits. He approached a small cluster near the edge of the village, away from the others, and placed his hands on the stones. At first, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the glow began to shift, brighter than before, rippling across the stones, as if responding to a silent rhythm he could not yet hear. A shiver ran through him. He could feel energy moving from one stone to another, spreading out like waves in water. He experimented carefully over the next few days, sending small, deliberate pulses of emotion. Calm, curiosity, joy. Each pulse caused reactions, some subtle, some dramatic. The villagers began to notice. At first they watched quietly, their colors changing with surprise or caution. Then, cautiously, they approached, testing him as he had tested the stones. Miri observed him one afternoon, her colors flashing in soft gold and violet. "You are learning quickly, human," she said. "The stones respond, but their energy is delicate. You must not push too far." Evan nodded, though his mind raced with possibilities. If humans could influence the stones, even slightly, what could be done with their energy? Could they stabilize the village, or even enhance it? The thought both thrilled and frightened him. The first real test came unexpectedly. A storm swept over the village, sudden and violent, with winds that bent the translucent buildings and rain that shimmered like liquid light. The villagers ran to the glowstones, clustering around them, and Evan followed instinctively. The stones pulsed wildly, almost screaming in color, reacting to the fear and panic around them. One stone, larger than the others, glowed so intensely that Evan felt heat rising from it. A villager, small and flickering in violet, reached out and touched it. The light flared, almost blinding him, and the villager collapsed into the stone. Evan froze, unsure what to do. For a moment, he thought the villager was gone, absorbed forever. But then the light dimmed, and the villager rose slowly, pale and weak, yet alive. Evan's heart pounded. The stones were not passive objects. They were not just reactive. They were active. They could absorb energy, maybe even life, and release it safely if handled correctly. He realized that the village survived not because of the stones alone, but because the villagers had learned to interact with them perfectly, to give and take energy in delicate balance. After the storm, Evan spent hours talking, or rather, thinking, with the stones. He discovered that the stones responded best when he concentrated fully, imagining solutions, sending patterns of emotion in sequences. They could be guided, but only with care and patience. When he tried to force them, they shuddered and dimmed, as if annoyed or distressed. He began to understand that the glowstones were intelligent in a way he had never imagined. Curiosity pushed him further. One afternoon he focused on multiple stones at once, sending calm and joy through a group of 3. To his surprise, they pulsed in perfect harmony, brighter than any he had seen. A ripple spread through the cluster. A nearby villager stopped and stared, colors shifting rapidly in fascination. Evan realized with a start, humans could influence the stones in ways Trelkins could not. He did not tell Miri. He could feel the excitement building, the potential for understanding something no alien had ever seen before. But along with excitement came fear. What if he miscalculated? What if his interference destabilized the village or harmed the villagers? His fears were not unfounded. That night, while experimenting alone near a large cluster on the outskirts, Evan accidentally sent a pulse of strong, anxious emotion into the stones. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The stones flared, glowing so brightly that Evan had to shield his eyes. The vibrations ran through the ground, shaking the small clearing. A villager collapsed, and another screamed in color, a soundless cry that made Evan's stomach turn. He rushed to stabilize the stones, focusing every ounce of concentration on calming them. Slowly, the glow softened, dimming to its normal pulse. The villagers recovered, but the incident left Evan shaken. He realized that while humans could influence the stones, over the next few days Evan worked carefully, experimenting with subtle control, learning the stones' patterns and their limits. The villagers began to watch him with more trust. Though some remained cautious, Miri observed silently, her colors a constant mixture of gold and green, never reprimanding, but always alert. It was during this time that Evan discovered something remarkable. The stones seemed to amplify human traits more than Tralkin ones. When he focused on courage, they glowed steady and strong. When he focused on hope, the glow spread wider, touching neighboring stones. The Trelkins, for all their grace and precision, could not achieve the same effects. Evan realized that humans had a unique connection to these stones, a connection the aliens had never understood. One evening, a Trelkin child wandered too close to the edge of the clearing, frightened by a sudden movement in the forest. The stones pulsed wildly, almost in panic, and Evan reacted instinctively. He sent a calm, focused pulse through the nearest cluster, guiding the energy toward the child. The stones responded immediately, creating a gentle, glowing barrier that prevented the child from harm. The villagers gasped, their colors flashing in astonishment. Evan felt a surge of pride. He had saved a life by using the stones, something no Trelkin could have done. Word of his ability began to spread through the village. Villagers approached him cautiously, asking silently, through color and gesture, for help with their own glowstones. Some wanted him to stabilize clusters that had been flickering. Others sought guidance in sending specific pulses. Evan realized that his role was changing. He was no longer just a caretaker. He was a teacher, a guide, and perhaps a bridge between human understanding and Trelkin tradition. The turning point came when a natural hazard threatened the village. A nearby ridge, composed of crystalline formations, began to crack and shift. If it collapsed, the village would be destroyed. The Trelkins clustered around their stones, sending urgent pulses through the network, but the energy was not enough to stabilize the ridge. Panic spread. Evan stepped forward, heart pounding. He had studied the stones, learned their reactions, and understood their limitations. He focused, sending precise pulses of calm, strength, and hope through multiple clusters. The stones flared in response, brighter than ever before. Vibrations ran through the ridge, stabilizing cracks as the energy spread. The villagers watched in awe, their colors shifting rapidly between surprise, relief, and admiration. By the time the ridge settled, Evan was exhausted. He collapsed to the ground, but the villagers surrounded him, glowing with gratitude and wonder. Miri approached, her colors vibrant gold and deep violet. "You have done what no Trelkin could," she said softly. "You have guided the stones with clarity, courage, and heart. You are remarkable." Evan felt a mix of pride and humility. He had come to this village thinking he would observe and care for the stones, but he had discovered something far greater. Humans, with their creativity, courage, and adaptability, could achieve what even the most advanced alien beings could not. In the quiet moments that followed, Evan sat among the glow stones, exhausted but exhilarated. The stones pulsed gently, responding to his presence almost as if they were acknowledging his role. For the first time, he felt a true connection, not just with the village, or the stones, or the aliens, but with a universe that was larger, stranger, and more wondrous than he had ever imagined. The task he had once thought simple, caretaking, was now a challenge that demanded intuition, courage, and understanding. And Evan realized, with a thrill he could barely contain, that this was only the beginning. The glowstones were teaching him, yes, but he had the power to teach them something in return. Humans could shape the world in ways the Trelkins had never dreamed. As night fell over the village, the stones glowing softly under the twin moons of Xiphora, Evan gazed out across the clearing. He knew that the days ahead would bring greater challenges, deeper mysteries, and perhaps dangers he could not yet imagine. But for the first time, he felt ready. The human mind was clever, resourceful, and adaptable, and in this strange alien village it was beginning to shine like the glowstones themselves. The morning sun rose over the village, painting the sky in shades of orange and violet. Evan woke with a restless energy that made him almost forget the exhaustion from the previous days. The ridge had been stabilized, the stones had pulsed in harmony, and the villagers now looked at him differently. There was respect in their movements, admiration in their colors, and a curiosity that bordered on awe. But there was also tension. He could feel it in the hum of the stones, in the careful steps of the villagers, and the subtle flicker of Miri's glow. It started with a small tremor, a vibration that ran under the translucent buildings and sent ripples across the clearing. Evan froze, listening. The glowstones pulsed rapidly, a nervous staccato of color that spread through the village. The Trelkins began to gather, their movements precise but urgent. Miri's glow flared bright gold and deep violet, a signal of alarm. "What is happening?" Evan asked, though he already felt the answer in his bones. "The ridge is not stable," Miri said. The cracks spread deeper. "The stones cannot hold it long."
"You must help," Evan's heart pounded.
He had managed small tasks before, stabilizing the ridge in a controlled way, but this was different. The cracks had spread to the core of the crystalline formation. If it collapsed, it would destroy the village entirely. And worse, it could damage the glowstones themselves. He moved quickly, placing his hands on the nearest cluster. The stones pulsed, bright and chaotic, reacting to his fear and urgency. He forced himself to focus, to push away panic. Calm. Strength. Clarity. Hope. The stones responded slowly, their pulses becoming steadier under his control. The Trelkins followed, guiding him where clusters were weak, touching the stones in careful synchrony. But Evan realized something unsettling. They were limited. Their energy was precise but small. The human mind could influence multiple stones at once, could send complex pulses through the clusters in ways the Trelkins could not. He understood with a sudden clarity that he held the village's survival in his hands. He began to orchestrate the energy, moving from cluster to cluster, sending waves of stabilizing force into the stones. The crystals of the ridge vibrated in response, small fissures closing as the pulses spread. The ground shook, and dust fell from the translucent rooftops. A villager stumbled, and Evan caught them instinctively, guiding their touch back to a nearby stone. Hours passed in tense, almost unbearable effort. The stones hummed with growing energy, some brighter than ever before. Evan could feel the strain, the pulse of the village in his own chest. Every misstep, every hesitation, could shatter the balance. Sweat ran down his face, his muscles ached, but he refused to stop. The ridge's energy was alive, chaotic, demanding complete focus. Suddenly, a massive fissure opened at the ridge's peak. Rocks tumbled, and the ground shook violently. The Trelkins froze, helpless, their pulses weak and flickering. Evan's mind raced. He could not reach the top physically, but he could send his energy through the stones, using the clusters like conduits. He focused, drawing on every ounce of concentration. Calm, strength, hope, determination. A wave of light surged from the nearest cluster, traveling across the village, jumping from stone to stone and reaching the fissure. The crystals shimmered, vibrating in response. Slowly, imperceptibly at first, the ridge began to stabilize. More energy surged through the stones, brighter and stronger, as Evan pushed himself harder. The fissure slowed, the falling rocks caught mid-motion, suspended as if the universe itself had paused. Miri's colors flared, gold and violet, signaling both awe and alarm. "You are extraordinary, human," she whispered. "We have never seen this." Evan barely registered her words. He was in the flow, the rhythm of the glowstones coursing through him. He could sense their energy in every step, every pulse. For the first time, he realized the full extent of human potential. The Trelkins had built their civilization around the stones, but their understanding was linear, cautious. Humans could approach the same system with creativity, unpredictability, and adaptability. He adjusted the pulses subtly, changing the rhythm to counteract small vibrations, stabilizing cracks that had formed overnight. It was exhausting, almost unbearable, but he refused to stop. Sweat ran down his brow, his chest heaving with effort, but the stones responded, brighter and steadier with each pulse. The villagers began to participate cautiously, their colors shifting in encouragement, their hands moving over stones with careful guidance. Slowly, the combined energy of human and Trelkin stabilized the ridge completely. Dust settled, and the ground stilled. Evan collapsed to his knees, utterly spent, but triumphant. The village had survived. The Trelkins surrounded him, their glows soft, reverent. Miri approached, her colors shifting in patterns Evan could barely interpret. Gold for respect, violet for admiration, green for peace.
"You have saved the village," she said.
"You have done what no Trelkin could. Your mind, your courage, it is unlike anything we have known." Evan felt a flush of pride, but also a humbling awareness of the responsibility he now carried. Humans were capable of extraordinary things, he realized, but power carried weight. The glowstones were delicate, alive and responsive in ways that required respect and care. A single misstep could have destroyed the village, or worse. As night fell, Evan wandered through the village, now quiet after the storm of activity. The glowstones pulsed softly, steady and calm, almost as if acknowledging his presence. He noticed the villagers observing him, some approaching tentatively to touch the stones under his guidance. They were learning from him, as he had learned from them. A thought struck him suddenly. Humans were not just participants in this world, they were connectors, innovators. Where the Trelkins had relied on repetition, careful observation, and tradition, humans could improvise, adapt, and imagine new possibilities. Evan felt a surge of hope. If humans could apply the same principles here, in a small alien village, what might they achieve across the stars? The following days were a mixture of teaching and learning. Evan experimented carefully with the glowstones, showing the villagers subtle ways to stabilize clusters, how to balance energy flows, and how to anticipate disruptions. The Trelkins were cautious but curious, slowly beginning to understand new patterns and techniques. Evan found himself increasingly connected to the village, not just as a human in an alien world, but as a bridge between two ways of thinking. He marveled at the simplicity of the Trelkin rituals and the complexity hidden beneath them. The stones were alive, yes, but so were the villagers, each one a unique pulse in a network, a life intertwined with energy and rhythm. Yet, even as Evan guided the village, he knew the next challenge would be greater. The ridge was stabilized for now, but natural hazards were unpredictable. The glowstones could respond, but only if guided with precision and imagination. The Trokin's fear and awe of humans would be tested, and Evan himself would face limits he could not yet see. He spent one evening sitting alone among the glowstones, the soft light illuminating the edges of his face. He felt the pulse of the village under his hands, steady, alive. Each stone responded to his presence, a living network of energy that stretched across the clearing. He closed his eyes, feeling the rhythm of his own heartbeat align with the stones. A sudden thought struck him. The human mind was uniquely suited to this task, not because of physical strength, but because of adaptability, imagination, and courage. The Trokins were brilliant in their own way, but constrained by tradition and caution. Humans could see patterns, improvise solutions, and act in ways that broke boundaries. Evan realized, with a thrill he had never felt before, that humans could teach even the most advanced aliens something new. As night deepened, Evan felt a strange sense of peace. He had faced chaos, danger, and exhaustion, and he had survived. The glowstones pulsed gently, almost in approval, as if acknowledging his growth and his role in the village. He knew that the days ahead would be more challenging. Natural hazards, unexpected events, and deeper mysteries of the stones awaited. But he was ready. Humans were not just capable of survival, they were capable of brilliance. And in that moment, Evan understood something profound. The task he had once thought simple, caretaking, was now a proving ground, a test of human ingenuity and courage. He smiled faintly, feeling the pulse of the stones under his hands, and whispered to himself, "We are capable of more than we know." For the first time, he felt truly at home in this strange alien village, not as a visitor but as a participant, a teacher, and a bridge between worlds. Humanity's potential, he realized, was just beginning to shine.